Hey there, welcome to Hobie on YouTube. Hey, it's Swiss Army knife time. I was going to play a game of what's in the box with you, but I think the title's going to give it away, so there's no point in that. But I will say that for you collectors of Victorinox Swiss Army knives, especially you guys that like the Alox models, you're in for a real treat, because here in the box I have a beautiful, near perfect White Cross Red Alox Scale Pioneer. And if this weren't special enough, it's one of the very first from 1957 with the old style awl. So you may know that Victorinox introduced this new knife, the Pioneer, also known as the Sturdy Boy, this 93mm Alox scaled, more modern knife in 1957. They still make them today, but when they first made them, they didn't have the more modern angled, flat, sharpened reamer that just lays along the top here. They had the older style, three-sided awl that required a big cutout in the scale and a little thumb divot to get it out. So I like to call these the European style awls, because you do see them on older European knives like old German Scout utility knives, and they're the type of awl you see on the older Swiss soldier knives. Open straight out here at the end. It's nice and thick. And as you can see, it has nice square edges, but they're not sharpened really. But that's how you can tell one of the very first Pioneers. I think they only did this in 1957, but if it was for any longer, it wasn't for much longer, because in 1961, when they introduced the Alox Swiss soldier knife, which was based on the Pioneer, they had moved to this more modern sharpened reamer that has an angle to it and a lip, so it doesn't require a cutout in the scale. You can get your thumb up under it to open it. So that's what makes this knife so special, that plus its condition. It's very rare. As I said, this is what they based the 1961 model Swiss soldier on that ran for so long, up till 2008. There are some differences. While I have that out, the soldier has a hollow rivet, and instead of a Swiss cross here or a white cross, it's the Waffen control stamp inside a Swiss cross. And the soldier knives would be date stamped with a 2-digit date on the back of the main blade tang. These typically were not, but occasionally you can find one with a date stamp on the back of the blade, because they would use the parts as crossovers in those two models. Often when you see these early Pioneers, these White Cross Red Alox Pioneers, they're going to carry the Victorinox tang stamp. So there you see that with the Swiss crossbow. And most likely that's a combination of the words Elzener for Carl Elzener and inoxidable for stainless. But I've also heard it could be the combination of the name Elise and Enox, because Carl Elzener II's wife's name was Elise. And when he died, she and her two sons took over the company in 1950. So it's either Elzener or Elise, but there it is, Victorinox with the crossbow. And Victorinox used that blade stamp on these from 1957 up through 1974. On the back, got the standard Victorinox Switzerland stainless Rost Frey stamp. And you'll notice all the letters are the same size. Victorinox used that type of tang stamp from 1952, obviously before they started the Pioneer, up through 1986. But after 1986, they continued to use this up to about 2008, except the V on Victorinox was much larger. They call that the big V tank stamp. And while we're talking just about Pioneers and how to date them, you'll notice this knife has a brass separator and a spacer. They were brass on these knives from 1957 until 1984, when they switched to nickel silver like we have today. So of course they still make the Pioneer. It's one of Victorinox's most popular knives. They've based a lot of other knives on it, like the Farmer or the Harvester, the Pioneer X, the Farmer X, the smaller size cadet knives. But this is the knife that started it all. The Pioneer, also known as Sturdy Boy, from 1957. So we'll just take a look at the rest of the knife. It's just really well built. Great spring tension. It's nice crisp snaps on this knife. Here's the can opener with a small screwdriver. This is the tool that Victorinox patented in 1951. It's kind of interesting. You know, I mentioned the Pioneer, the 1961 model soldier's knife was based on the Pioneer. And the Swiss Army used to split the contract for the soldier knives 50-50 between Victorinox and Wenger, at least through the years 1921 up to about 2008. Although there were a couple years there in the 50s that Roethlisberger contributed knives as well. But anyway, this tool was patented by Victorinox and produced by them. So Wenger, and this actually is a Wenger soldier I have here, they actually had to buy these parts from Victorinox and install them in their half of the knives for these model 1961 soldiers. Kind of interesting. And here is the screwdriver cap lifter. This knife is just in really great shape. It has a little wire bender stripper here. I do want to point out that sharpened interior edge there. That's for stripping cables. It's got a nice firm half stop. And then let's look at the blade again. It's just so nice. It's full. It's got a great edge on it. And then again, the awl that sets this particular one apart, makes it one of the earliest and rarest Pioneers. This exquisite example of an early Pioneer comes to me from the Dave Arnold collection. Dave was kind enough to lend this out so I could make a video to share with you. Dave originally purchased this knife from Stefan Schober's collection. And Stefan just had a great eye for great knives. He knew which ones were important, and he collected some real fine knives, and I think this was one of the prize knives in his collection. And while I'm speaking of the late Stefan, I want to show you one thing that he did for me. It kind of ties in with the soldier knives. But he bequeathed this book to me because he knew I was into Swiss soldier knives. And what this is a very special book. It was put out on the 100th anniversary of the Swiss soldier knife, so it was put out in 1991. It was not made available to the general public. It was only given to members of the Swiss Cutlers Association. And it's a collection of original documents and technical drawings and specs of all the soldiers' knives, procurement letters, things like that. And just wanted to show you, if I can find it quickly, yeah, right here in the back. Here are the original blueprints for the 1961 model Swiss soldier knife. And in whole there. And then tool by tool. There's a blade on that page, but I'm trying to get all this in the frame. But here's the can opener, Victorinox's patented can opener, and every single little measurement about it. And then on this page we have that more modern reamer that they used on the knife when they replaced the original old style awl. But it's just a really cool book. It is in German, but I've been able to translate a lot of it. And again, that's something that Stefan left to me that I'll always be grateful for. So it's getting harder and harder to find these White Cross Red Alox Pioneers, but they're still out there. They're just very hard to find in this condition. And the reason being is that red anodization would just wear off so easily. It would wear from pocket wear very quickly, and you would start to see the silver underneath it. They dropped it pretty quickly and just went to silver for a while. It would also chip, particularly around the edges. And so most of them you see are all chipped off along the backside and the corners and everything. It's really unusual to find one that's in this condition, particularly one of the first ones. And so while you can still find the White Cross Red Alox Pioneers, it's really tough to get one of these original ones, and they command a pretty high price on the market. And this is about the nicest, well, this is the nicest one I've ever seen. And to be able to find an original like this in this pristine of a condition, well, I think that would be just almost impossible. I know that there's one out there, and I'm holding it in my hand. So I just again want to thank Dave Arnold for sending this down from his collection so I can share it with you. Again, it was originally part of Stefan Schober's collection. And, you know, yeah, it's just a fantastic holy grail type of knife for people that collect Victorinox Alox knives. I hope you've enjoyed watching that, and have fun collecting.